while you're enjoying beverages and some snacks. I'm very pleased to see a very strong delegation of FIABCI in Quito, and you'll hear several of our members in the coming minutes. First, I would like to explain why we started this campaign, The City We Need is Affordable. Well, several factors are happening. As you know, the population is exploding. Life lasts longer. People die at an older age. Child mortality decreases and urbanization accelerates. The world population over the last million years is that flat line at the bottom. Oh, the screen disappeared. Okay, well, we need a little technical support. Maybe, Bill, if you can get us some technical support. Okay, very good. Thank you, by magic. And as you know, like in the 50s, the average age of people people were dying at 48. And now they're going to live until 76. And actually, there are now hundreds of thousands of people who are living more than 100 years. Child mortality, fortunately, has decreased and will continue to decrease. So it means that the children are born and they actually live till they're old. And the urbanization is increasing constantly, as you can see. The urbanization line is the brown line, and we crossed the 50% in the countryside and 50% in the cities around 2007. So we're getting into new times, and that's why we have Habitat 3 focused on urbanization. There's a big global deficit around the world. The pyramids are reversed. Demand for affordable housing is this big, and supply is this big. Supply of luxury housing is this big, and demand is this small. So we have to change that. And that's why FIABCI is committed to encourage the private sector to invest in affordable housing and cooperate with the local authorities and the national governments to implement Agenda 2030. As you know, in every country, the price of land has increased exponentially. And that is probably the major reason why in many cities around the world, people who work in the city are not able to afford a house or an apartment, whether for rent or for sale. So we launched our World Urban Campaign, The City We Need is Affordable. This is a problem in every country, and it is our responsibility as professionals of the real estate professions to give a contribution and get involved. There has never been a time like this in the history of the world. The next 30 years belong to real estate professionals if they can do something to help people live a better life. So I'm calling on all of you to get involved at your local level. There's a lot that can be done. And the goal is to convince private investors and private enterprises to build more affordable housing, better and more affordable housing, quickly. The clock is ticking. I'll tell you, I thought about the campaign on the day I went to Germany, Berlin, for the Prix d'Excellence on the 15th of September of last year. The day before, I learned that 60,000 migrants had landed in the Munich train station. The German government was very concerned that 60,000 more would come every day, so they sent 100 buses immediately to Vienna and Hungary to pick up the migrants to bring them to 100 cities in Germany. And I realized at that time that if we're not very, very quick, very smart, and very creative, we're going to have a big problem, because the migration from south to north is going to continue, no matter how many walls we build, no matter what we do policy-wise. You know, if people need a job and they want to have a better life, they're going to go where they think it's better for them, and nothing will stop them, not even death. So I encourage you to get involved. Okay.
Hola. A ver, vamos a hacer una pequeña traducción para las personas que no comprendieron lo que Daniel Grossenberger estaba diciendo. En este caso estamos hablando de construir y buscar soluciones importantísimas en estos momentos para la sociedad, especialmente para que podamos construir ciudades y podamos construir viviendas que sean asequibles, donde la gente que vive en las afueras de la ciudad, que vienen a vivir, a trabajar en la ciudad, puedan quedarse en las ciudades principales. En este caso estamos teniendo muchos obstáculos donde pues no podemos necesariamente pagar los precios de las ciudades principales, así que Daniel está pidiendo que todos busquemos soluciones locales en nuestras ciudades y en nuestros países, donde podamos traer soluciones y así podamos también crear una vivienda asequible para todas las personas que viven en este país. Ella comentaba que la gente va siempre a continuar migrando de otras ciudades y de otros países, y necesitamos buscar formas en las que podamos todos convivir y tener una vida más cómoda y seguir, especialmente para la fuerza trabajadora, que realmente es el grupo de personas que construyen nuestros países y nuestras ciudades. Eso es por el momento.
Thank you very much. Very good translation, by the way. Congratulations.
Quick summary.
So, bottom line, we have to share ideas. We have to share solutions. And that's what we decided to do as FIABCI, the International Real Estate Federation. We launched a contest at MIPIM. We got several solutions sent to us by people from many countries. We selected the ones that are in this book, which we're launching officially today. And I'm asking you to take a copy on your way out if you're interested. You will find some very interesting ideas in architecture, financing, etc. And the purpose of our meetings today is to discuss these different fields in which we need to have more creativity and innovation to build more affordable housing. So that's the end of my presentation. And I would like to let you know that this is the start today. It's not the end of the program. We're starting a campaign. We're starting an after Quito where we're going to implement Agenda 2030. I would like to introduce you to a very, very, very special person for FIABCI. Mrs. Nahel Thompson is a very long time honorary member of FIABCI. She is an architect. She has worked on the ground in England, in Spain, in many countries. And she has worked for the UN for over 20 years. But what's very special about Mrs. Thompson is that she feels committed to help everybody. Even now that she is retired, she has not given up, and she has prepared something very special for us because she has attended Habitat 1 in Vancouver in 1976, Habitat 2 in 1996 in Istanbul, and she's here today, and she had a little health problem today, so she asked to be down on the ground floor instead of on the panel. So please, Nahel, tell us what you have prepared.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and please forgive me any problems that arise from this minor accident I had.
Nahel, I think your microphone is not close enough to your mouth.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now, first of all, I just want to say the purpose of this was to inform. It's not a flyer, it's not a proposition sheet. It's to inform where this trajectory of habitat issues has gone And over the 40-odd years that we've been handling so-called habitat issues, this illustrates where we haven't made the promises we kept, and we haven't been able to do all the housing that we wanted. And I think that this is important, and take it and think about it, and where we can make some breakthroughs. And another speaker will tell you about some of those breakthroughs. The incredible increase in the incredible increase in population has daunted most governments from doing anything really about housing, and the rich can do it for themselves. So we have to find ways of concessionary funding and concessionary conditions for people to be able to have a decent home and bring up their children and live their lives with a certain amount of respect and, or what we would say, security, particularly today. So I thought if you had any questions, it might make more use of the time to do that. There's enough written here as an introduction, so I would be very happy to take a couple of questions because we don't have very much time. So to speak of something new rather than something old. So if you have a question, I would be delighted to try to answer it.
I think Pia would like to translate in
Hola, hola.
Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Sí, bueno, voy a hacer una pequeña traducción. Nairel viene desde Nueva York y ella ha estado en Habitat 1, Habitat 2 y ahora en Habitat 3. Para las personas que conocen un poco cómo funciona Habitat, Habitat es un evento de la ONU que solamente se da cada 20 años. Por lo tanto, tenemos a Nairel que ha estado 60 años involucrada en esto y ella también tiene una trayectoria muy grande en la ONU. Lo que ella comenta es que anteriormente en cada una de los hábitats han existido muchas promesas y en los 20 años de ese hábitat no se han realmente buscado soluciones ni se han llegado a soluciones concretas. En este caso ella sugiere y pide que nosotros busquemos soluciones y podamos realmente llegar a algo concreto y que podamos realmente construir lo que estamos hablando en este caso como Habitat 3. También ella dice que pues esa es la oportunidad, si hay preguntas sobre lo que es el Habitat 3, creo que vamos a tener un flyer que ella va a repartir con información sobre lo que ha sido el Habitat 1, Habitat 2 y Habitat 3. Gracias.
Are there any questions for Narelle?
¿Alguna pregunta para Nairel?
Yes.
What was the main theme of Habitat 1 versus Habitat 2? Of Habitat 1, what was the concentration for that forum?
¿Cuál fue la concentración entre Habitat 1 y Habitat 2?
We don't hear you, Narelle.
The general acceptance that something had to be done about housing all over the world. The slums and squatter settlements we visited were totally unsafe for human beings, and they were all over the world, particularly where we visited most, for some reason, was Latin America, and there were slums in every major city. One of the problems, I think, is that when the governments go to the UN to vote on they're going to do something for housing or they're going to do something for this or that, they looking at an ideal situation, and they all claim that they've got the places where they can do this, but it isn't true. It's not really their fault. They just don't have the resources. They don't have the money, they don't have the infrastructure to do anything about housing. But they do a few demonstration housing, and some private developers are out there linked to the UN. So I can't really clarify when we're going to get some real feeling for the situation of housing in the world. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know when they will all jump up and agree to do something.
There is another question, Narelle. Did you have a question? No?
Sí, ¿aló? Una pequeña traducción nuevamente. Lo que dice Narelle es que la diferencia prácticamente lo que ha sido Habitat 1 y Habitat 2 realmente ha sido la falta de concretar lo que se conversa en estas discusiones de Habitat, ya que las propuestas que se han presentado a lo mejor no tienen una base donde lo que quisieran construir, a lo mejor la infraestructura o los materiales no son exactamente fáciles se me fue la palabra, fáciles de crear, en este caso lo que son viviendas, y por lo tanto ellas nuevamente necesitan tener para Habitat 3 esto, que sean soluciones más concretas, que sean realistas.
Thank you very much. There was another question to the right. We'll take one more question. It's gone, maybe. Yes, sir. Yes, por favor. 1 second, we give you a microphone.
Hello.
Our event is
Yeah,
streamlined, so we're broadcast around the world.
I'm basically from India, an architect from India. I was in the school when Vancouver conference Habitat 1 happened, but I had the unique opportunity of attending Habitat 2 and its review meeting in New York, and now I'm here in Quito to attend the third Habitat. The agenda for the first Habitat that happened in Vancouver, as Mary will remember, was housing for all. The second Habitat, which happened in Istanbul, actually talked about adequate housing and urbanization in, human settlement, the growth of human settlements in an urbanizing world. These were the two mandates that came out of Habitat 2. And Habitat 3 is now talking about housing at the center, which means 20 years down the lane, we have not really gone ahead with anything. We were talking about adequate housing for all in the last Habitat. Habitat 3 is not even addressing that. The civil society sector has completely vanished, and it's taking a completely different form for all forms of housing.
Narelle, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you. It's very important that people notice that, because Habitat 2 was really called the City Summit. It was announced at that. Suddenly, the people who became involved in Habitat as the generations moved were people who wanted to see cities in their countries. They all voted for, when the final business came up, they all voted to have the City Summit. But many countries weren't even appropriate to have the City Summit, and you get this in when they had the Millennium Development Goals, and housing was one of those goals. But what happened was that the people were overtaken by the more wealthy, more urban-minded people, and this didn't happen. Even the slums were cityfied. So it depends on the country what they're willing to do, and they can't. No longer do they get much money from any of the international agencies for housing, and they have to find ways to either tax people or do some other incentive for people to go to create their own housing. So I agree with the gentleman who spoke that, and it's very bad in some countries more than others, obviously, but you have here, you had a Department of Housing which did a lot of work in countries originally. You have the Cooperative Housing Foundation, which is part of State Department. They did a lot in cooperative housing in the US. And there are all these mechanisms available, but only a small group of countries are using the mechanisms to get work done.
Pia, you want to translate?
Voy a pedir un poco de disculpas por la traducción bien breve y por la primera parte que estuve un poquito distraída con los emails. Prácticamente lo que Narelle está diciendo es que realmente las soluciones el señor comentaba, él estuvo en India en la primera Habitat 1 y comentaba que el Habitat 1 fue una conferencia sobre, creo que fue Human Settlements, el segundo fue la City Summits y ahora estamos hablando de lo que son housing, viviendas en este caso. Lo que Nerol estaba comentando es que en las diferentes conferencias de Habitat, realmente las respuestas son prácticamente dependiendo de cada espacio, cada terreno en el que se puedan hacer las construcciones, en las que se puedan buscar un poco lo que son las soluciones. No sé si Patricia Sellery está por aquí, me ayuda un poco con la traducción porque estaba un poco yo distraída de lo que Narelle estaba diciendo. Perdón.
Básicamente lo que Narelle quería transmitir como un mensaje general es cómo los tres hábitats han venido trayendo una transformación de lo que es la vivienda urbana y sustentable a lo largo de los años. Este hábitat 3 va a ser más allá de un documento declaratorio, son planes de acción hacia el futuro.
Thank you very much. I must say
We have
that
one more question.
yes, a problem that that Joan Claus, the head of UN Habitat, mentioned repeatedly is that there was no way to monitor after Habitat 1 and Habitat 2 whether the program, the decisions were implemented. Big books were published, but there was nothing concrete. And you will see today in our event that we're bringing concrete ways of monitoring or helping the implementation in ways that we will be able all to see. So we'll have a presentation in a few minutes. I would like to ask Flavio Gonzaga Nunes to join me here at this table. Flavio is a past president of FIABCI. He's an attorney in Brazil, and he's extremely involved with the UN. He has attended events at the UN now for many, many years. So we'd like to hear what he thinks of the past, present, and future of Habitat.
Shall I go?
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
She must have said all that should be said today. But thank you for the invitation to have me making this short address. Good afternoon, my greetings to everybody, and I'm happy to see this room full of people, full of interested attendees. Great. As Danielle mentioned, I have been involved with this process, but as a participant in the WUC, an initiative of the World UN Habitat. WUC stands for World Urban Campaign, and also representing FIABCI. I am a partner at the General Assembly of the Partners. So I have participated in several events organized by the UN Habitat. I was in the PrepCon 2 in Nairobi last year, then the other events that took place afterwards, and finally I was in the PrepCon 3 in Surabaya last July and saw people a little bit upset because the state governments haven't reached an agreement about the final text of the new urban agenda. But fortunately, 1 month, 2 months after, in 10th September in New York, they finally reached this agreement, and now we have a new urban agenda to be signed, executed in the upcoming Thursday at the closing ceremony of H3. But as an attendee, a frequent attendee of the events of the UN Habitat, and having built a lot of good relationships there, I have my perceptions that I would like to convey to you in a short presentation. I guess I was assigned 5 minutes, no?
That's right.
Okay, so I will be in track. All right, so as Mrs. Narella pointed out, we come from Vancouver, then we passed by Istanbul, and now we are here. In Vancouver, the first Habitat, for sure, couldn't address everything. It was something experimental, but it is a mark in the history of the habitats. And the action plan written in Vancouver addressed the human rights, and doing that underpinned the inadequate living conditions. So this was the topic there, 1976. And then local government and civil society were put aside. They didn't take part of the formal process.
Perdón la interrupción, es para traducir. El señor Flavio, él es de Brasil, ha sido presidente de FIABCI, Federación Internacional de Bienes Raíces, y él comentaba que él ha sido parte de Habitat 1, 2 y 3, y al ser parte de ese Habitat ha visto diferencias que se han dado. En este caso se va a firmar este jueves por fin una nueva agenda que va a ayudar para que podamos implementar los nuevos cambios. También comentaba que en Canadá, la primera vez, estaban conversando sobre el tema de Habitat, y creo que hasta ahí nos quedamos, la parte de Canadá, ¿no?
Sí. En Vancouver, Canadá, de temas fueron derechos humanos y, a la continuación, también las condiciones inadecuadas de viviendas. Esto ocurrió en Vancouver. No sé si la mayor cantidad de personas aquí hablan español o speaking English.
Well, let's ask. How many people speak English? English for how many? Okay. Spanish, español? Half and half.
Half and half. Okay, I have to make shorter my presentation. Okay, so my 5 minutes will be 2.3, 2.5, yeah.
2.5 minutes
Yeah,
in English.
and in English, and then I will try to talk, to translate it into Spanish or in Portuñol, okay? No?
Not today.
All right, so in English, and I rely on our translator, ad hoc, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So after Vancouver, we went to Istanbul 2 years afterwards, and the Habitat agenda, the official document issued by the Habitat 2, addressed 2 urgent issues at the moment, namely the urgent need of adequate shelter for all, and the need to create sustainable human settlements. Now I ask you to make the translation, please.
Hola. Estaba comentando, Flavio, que en Canadá han tenido la oportunidad de han recibido dos citas urgentes, por así decirlo, de lo que sería el... Flavio, perdón, ¿cuál es what was there were two urgents. The first one was?
Dos tópicos, dos temas urgentes. El primer era la necesidad de proveer adecuada vivienda
Viviendas.
para todos. E el segundo tema era criar condiciones de pueblos, ciudades sustentables. Then we came to Quito. We have onwards the huge event, Habitat 3, a lot of conference, a lot of side events, parallel events, plenary sessions, etc., etc. And the document to be delivered by this huge conference is the New Urban Agenda. Everybody has heard about that, has spent a little bit of time or a lot of time trying to understand it. Please.
Okay. Después de lo que sucedió en Canadá, ahora estamos en Quito, donde han habido diferentes tipos de conferencias y reuniones en las que por fin vamos a salir con esta nueva agenda urbana, donde se va a presentar las nuevas soluciones ahora al final de Habitat 3.
Sí, the New Urban Agenda addresses complex topics, much more than the previous ones addressed in the previous Habitat.
La nueva agenda urbana va a presentar temas un poco más complejos en comparación a las agendas urbanas de las dos hábitats anteriores.
And differently from what happened in Vancouver and started changing in Istanbul, now in Quito we had the other partners, the social partners involved in formal meetings as well as the drafting of the new urban agenda.
Esta nueva agenda urbana es completamente diferente a las que se conversaron anteriormente, especialmente en la de Estambul, y se van también a presentar, se van a conversar sobre esa última parte, perdón.
Sí, esta nueva agenda urbana contó con la participación de la sociedad civil, de los gobiernos locales, cosas que no ocurrían en el pasado. Sí, muy bien. Entonces tenemos algo complejo que para... 1 minute, okay. The new urban agenda is not something that we could say new. No, it's the result of a lot of achievements in the past.
La nueva agenda urbana no necesariamente es una agenda nueva, sino que ha sido prácticamente con ajustes para hacerla mejor.
Sí, es is the natural result of initiatives like the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Sendai Agenda, the convention, the framework, the convention on climate change. All of these initiatives drove us to what is now the new urban agenda. The ideas are there.
La nueva agenda urbana ha sido prácticamente cambiada a partir de diferentes conferencias y diferentes congresos en los que se han conversado sobre cosas del clima, por ejemplo. Al mismo tiempo, en el 2013 hubo otra conversación sobre lo que es viviendas, y de todas las cosas de todos los eventos que han tenido en relación a las viviendas ha sido resultado de esta nueva agenda urbana.
And to finalize, yesterday we had something very, very important, very peculiar in the formal process of the UN Habitat. We had in the opening ceremony a slot reserved for the co-chair of the General Assembly of the Partners, the representative of the stakeholders, the civil society, the NGOs, took place in the opening ceremony yesterday. So this is an achievement of the partners that were put aside in the process.
Prácticamente ayer en la ceremonia de Hábitat 3, de la apertura, tuvimos un logro, por así decirlo, en temas de tener partners y personas y entidades que han colaborado, que anteriormente han sido puestos a un lado, ahora son partes de esta nueva agenda, por lo tanto se va a lograr mejores resultados.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have now, but we can speak to Flavio while eating something or drinking a little later. Thank you very much, Flavio. Whatever. You can actually, I'm going to ask Bill Ensley, the moderator of the next panel. We're going to have several short panels today, to come to the stage. And before he comes, I want to thank him very, very much for all his hard work to put together this beautiful book, The City We Need is Affordable. So I think he needs a big round of applause.
Is everybody okay? Hungry? Thirsty? We have coffee and snacks in the back at any time, so please feel free to enjoy, keep your nourishment, keep you awake, okay? I'm going to call to the stage, please, Enrico Campagnoli, Paul James, Marco, and Julia, please come. So Enrico Campagnoli is past world president of FIABCI. He has been heavily involved in all of the preparations for these meetings. He has been working on several of the concrete solutions that we've been talking about, particularly a global policy framework that he's going to talk about, and our cloud platform. So I'm going to introduce Enrico, who will make his presentation, and then introduce the other panelists.
Thanks.
Ha estado involucrado muy activamente en todas las reuniones en la conferencia de Hábitat 3 y el día de hoy nos va a hablar sobre la política de marco y marco global en cuanto a en bienes raíces y su plataforma de la nube.
I am honored to present here the FIABCI proposal at Habitat 3. I think that the last speech showed that after Habitat first, Habitat second, not many has been the results and has not been possible monitor what was happening and to see what process has been done.
El día de hoy, Enrico nos va a hablar sobre la propuesta de FIABCI y Hábitat 3, porque en los últimos dos hábitats no ha sido fácil medir y monitorear los resultados de los últimos dos hábitats. Esta vez nos va a hablar sobre la propuesta de FIABCI.
We had some technical problem that is solved. Where this proposal is coming from, you see on the screen, and I think that is the substantial point. In the last our Congress in Panama, FIABCI decided to support national and local authorities in reaching sustainable development goals.
En el último Congreso de Panamá del 2016, FIABCI acordó apoyar a autoridades locales y nacionales para alcanzar los objetivos en desarrollo sustentable.
Because between Habitat 2 and Habitat 3, there is the decision of a General Assembly of the United Nations last September that decide the Sustainable Development Goals and their targets. That is a decision that engage all the nations.
En las últimas dos hábitats y en se decidieron alcanzar los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable hacia Hábitat 3.
Let me skip what is FIABCI. You see on the screen, many of you know FIABCI since a long time. I would like just to say that FIABCI is operating with social responsibility, that in front of a global crisis and in front of a globalization, FIABCI recognizes in the United Nations a kind of possible global ruler.
FIABCI es la Federación Internacional de Bienes Raíces y ha operado en diferentes países como interconector de varias asociaciones a nivel nacional. A nivel internacional. Es una organización bajo la supervisión de las Naciones Unidas.
This event at Habitat 3 is the starting point of this FIABCI commitment taken by the organization, our organization in Panama. This commitment is the natural follow-up of a long FIABCI cooperation of the United Nations.
Hábitat 3 es el punto inicial de la cooperación de FIABCI en desarrollo sustentable.
There is something not going in my presentation. Sorry, but I have some problem. Okay, I go. In any case, FIABCI is going to launch in this event 3 concrete proposals. 3 concrete proposals that represent an unicum, a way to make expectation coming true. You have seen that between Habitat 1, Habitat 2, Habitat 3, we don't have a lot of realization, a lot of concrete solutions.
En este evento paralelo, FIABCI va a lanzar propuestas concretas para apoyar a autoridades locales y nacionales. Hemos visto que en los 2 últimos hábitats no se han podido concretar los objetivos planteados y es aquí donde vamos realmente a plantear acciones a futuro.
First proposal is to the national and local authorities and to UN entities to consider the opportunity to define a global policy framework for sustainable real estate development, globalizing, updating, and extending something that already exists, is the UNEC policy framework for sustainable real estate markets.
FIABCI propone a las autoridades locales y nacionales y a las entidades de las Naciones Unidas de definir un marco de política global para desarrollar mercados de bienes raíces sustentables.
Somebody can help me because here is not. In any case, you see, I follow the screen. I have a few copy here of a document on the table. Who is interested can take this document. Who would like to have this document can leave the card with the email and I will send a copy.
Enrico, si están interesados en conocer un poco más sobre el proyecto, Enrico, con mucho gusto, si dejan su tarjeta de presentación, les enviará por correo la presentación.
I'm sorry for the problem, but there's not correspondence between. The second proposal is to consider the possibility to improve the supply of affordable houses in cooperation with the private real estate sector. And I skip this point because, as being introduced at the beginning, is we present in this event this book with a collection of concrete solutions.
La segunda propuesta de FIABCI es mejorar la oferta de casas asequibles para los mercados de bienes raíces.
The third, and I would like just to say a few words on that, is a tool that is online, is an hour tool based on a circle sustainability method to monitor the urban progress in reaching sustainable development goals.
La tercera propuesta es una herramienta experimental donde se va a poder evaluar el desarrollo y el progreso de los desarrollos sustentables en los diferentes países.
Who is going to speak after me will be much more precise. I would like just to say that this tool is a tool that is using a methodology that has the intellectual ownership of Paul James that is in this table. And you see here that all the indicators are mapped with sustainable development goals and targets. Of course, Professor Paul James and architect Marco Matteini will tell much more about that.
Esta herramienta trabaja con una cierta metodología y fue desarrollada justamente para evaluar y monitorar los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable con propiedad intelectual.
My presentation is focused on the global policy framework for sustainable real estate development that we're going to propose to the national and local authorities to consider in view to have a definition of this document. Globalizing, updating, extending something that already existed, as I told you before, this UNEC document. Why we propose to start from this UNEC document? Because this UNEC document has been approved in 2010 by 56 nations in UNEC and has been considered by several nations and has been considered also in a positive way outside UNEC and had encouraging result and is an example of cooperation, public, national government and private sector and UN, very positive. That experience could be maybe made worldwide.
Este documento fue aprobado en el 2010 y fue aceptado por 56 países. Ha sido aceptado de manera muy positiva por la UNESCO y ha tenido una aceptación a nivel global muy positiva.
A short background of this UNEC document. You see in front of the crisis, FIABCI organized a UNEC REM event in New York at the headquarters, and Rosy Migiro, that was the Deputy Secretary General of United Nations, indicated the opportunity to prepare some guidelines for sustainable development of real estate markets after a few years. In 2010, this has been approved by 56 states in UNEC and has been translated in several languages and has been disseminated and has been presented in Ukraine, the government in Ukraine, in Portugal, in Italy, in Russia, in the United States, as you see in the flyer here for the last presentation of the United States. But to show you the encouraging result, you see after 6 months what happened in Ukraine. This is the website of the Ukrainian government that recognized the government portal reads urban planning revolution takes place in Ukraine. Please, sorry.
Gracias. Este documento ha sido diseminado en algunos países desde el 2010. El último fue publicado en Ucrania, donde el portal del gobierno indica la revolución de la planeación urbana toma lugar en Ucrania.
Very quick, because otherwise with the translation we duplicate the time. Here has been presented at Arab League, here has been presented in China, and has been considered in a positive way. Why FIABCI propose global, Why FIABCI propose to national and local authorities and UN entities to consider the opportunity to define a global policy framework for sustainable real estate development. Because it needs to arrive to show that real estate can involve relevant sustainable development goals, not only the Sustainable Goal 11. As you see here, it could contribute, help to eradicate the poverty, to stabilize the society and financial world. I would like to show the second example. An appropriate formalization of informal settlement in poorest nations with a title and a representation will give, especially if supported by internet facilities, to millions and millions of people the possibility to make their living where they are located, the way to access to credit, to rent, to sell, to buy, reducing the immigration and urbanization trend, giving social stability, producing tax income for their countries, creating social economical growth. This is the Sustainable Development Goals, one that is, I think, very, very important matter.
Un sector de bienes raíces bien regulado va a ser un motor para crear crecimiento sostenible, estabilidad para las naciones a nivel global, erradicar la pobreza y mejorar los establecimientos en las naciones más pobres con más representación. Va a dar más soporte en facilidades de Internet a millones de personas con la posibilidad de mejorar su calidad de vida donde están ubicados. Esta es una tendencia para reducir la inmigración, la urbanización, dar estabilidad social, generar impuestos de ingreso para los países y crear desarrollo social y económico.
This is an application of the Hernando de Soto ideas to transform dead capital in alive capital.
Esta es la idea de Hernando de Soto para transformar deuda de capital I didn't get the
alive, from dead capital to alive capital. If you have a house but you cannot have a mortgage, you have a dead capital. If you have the possibility to have a mortgage, you have a live capital, you can start your activity, you can probably make your living where you are.
La idea de Hernando de Soto fue transformar deuda muerta con deuda viva.
I will go quickly, globalizing, updating, and extending the existing UNEC global UNEC policy framework for sustainable real estate market. Globalizing, you see on the screen, of course, there is a Sustainable Development Goals 17, Sustainable Development 10, Sustainable Goal 17 and 13. Is not possible that the benefit coming from a policy framework are only for some nations. The globalization obliges to have a global vision, a global benefit for everybody.
Este marco de política global no solo puede ser para algunas naciones, sino para todas. Eso es lo que significa la globalización.
Updating. This has been approved in 2010. From 2010 to now, many things happen. And you see here, I don't know, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, Habitat-Free New Urban Agenda. You see some documents that are relevant, but there are more. So need to be updated.
Este marco global ha sido actualizado desde el 2010 hasta la fecha.
Need to be extended. And when we see standards, to be clear what we are thinking about. Need to, the emphasis of the UNEC policy framework was on the financial legal matters. But there were a need for this matter to be connected to broader question of property and place development, including ecological sustainability, urban livability, cultural vitality.
Hacer extensivo esta política, no solamente hacer una política local, sino una política global.
You saw that we arrived to some agreement with United Nations Global Capacity Program in Dubai and in Luxembourg, with at that time it was represented by Professor Paul James, and on that basis we made online this software that is applying this methodology.
En conjunto con el profesor James han implementado esta metodología y el software que está disponible online.
Now is not, this methodology is not supported by a global capacity program. We had several meetings with UN Habitat officers. We have here Giulia Lavagna of UN Habitat CPI office. And this tool monitor the progress of in reaching sustainable development goals, and this meeting were made to investigate the possibility to combine the city prosperity index that is being prepared, and after Giulia Lavagna will speak about that, by UN Habitat and GSM, the Circle of Sustainability methodology that on which is based our tools. CPI is based on data. Circle of Sustainability method is based on motivated perception of professional people. Both of the methods want to monitor the progress in reaching sustainable development goals. We are going to have on 20 scheduled a meeting here in Quito, and I can say that in the last web conference has been decided to make a common working group to try to investigate the possibility to have a combination of the two systems. I am going to... Yes, yes. These are the free systems. I'm going to close very, very quickly. I'm going to conclude. Sorry, because I was not thinking to the translation. And with these proposals, FIABCI confirmed to believe that the cooperation with national and local authorities and UN entities will be the key for a concrete follow-up of sustainable development goals and new urban agenda for a prosperous future and a better world. FIABCI proposed an unicum, a way to make the expectation come true. Will it be possible? It depends also from you. Thanks very much. Sorry. Now speak Paul James, that is the author of the book Circle of Sustainability Methods, and that you can see on the web. You can also have many shop store, and is the owner of the intellectual property of the methodology and the process. Please, Paul James.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here. I want to talk about the methodology that sits behind the framework that Enrico has been talking about. And the starting point for that methodology is to look at the human condition It's to say that the human condition is so much more complex than finance or law.
En estos momentos él está hablando sobre la metodología de lo que Enrico estaba conversando y esto es un poquito más complejo que en este tema que de lo que estamos hablando, un poco más complejo.
And so is real estate itself. Real estate is a very complex mechanism for being organised around a series of fields, and those fields find themselves located around the entire circle of what humans do in practicing their social lives. One of the things we want to do in maintaining this process is therefore recognise that, as Enrico said, that the other framework which was developed in 2010, which focused on finance and law, is not enough. We need to now turn our attention to all the domains of social life.
También estamos hablando que como bienes raíces también es complejo. Hay mecanismos voy a tener que pedir disculpas porque me siguen jalando de diferentes lados y es difícil para mí poder traducir. Patricia, te molesto una vez más. I apologize because people pulling me from everywhere and while I'm trying to translate, they're talking about something else. So I'm going to bother this time, Patricia, one more time.
What Professor James is trying to say, que lo que Profesor James está tratando de decir es que el sector de bienes raíces es un sector complejo que involucra varios círculos dentro de la vida social de un ser humano.
So as we move through that process, the circles of social life provide a mechanism for also translating the Sustainable Development Goals and also the New Urban Agenda. What we've found is that the complex visions that people have, including Habitat 3, have become so difficult, so aggregated in their concerns that it's difficult to pull apart the various dimensions of those concerns and to map them so that we can actually know what to do. What the Circles framework does is map those various concerns onto a single circle, which allows us to see the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals in the centre and the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals in the outside ring of that particular figure that you're watching on the screen.
Existen varias preocupaciones que son muy complejas de poderlos encompasar en un solo mapa. Sin embargo, han encontrado una manera de poder hacer un mapa con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible y
So what we're trying to do, therefore, and this is what Enrico was talking about, is find a way of translating the policy framework via the Sustainable Development Goals and New Urban Agenda into a new framework which sets the ideas of what is good real estate around very clear domain structure. Instead of starting from the principles that happen to be good at the moment, what it says is real estate should be able to respond to every single one of these domains, economics, ecology, politics and culture, and it therefore should also be able to respond to the subdomains within those domains.
Lo que estamos tratando de encontrar con esta nueva metodología es que el sector de bienes raíces debe de responder a cada uno de estos dominios, tanto económico, político, ecológico y cultural, y además poder responder a los subdominios dentro de cada dominio principal.
So you'll notice so far we've given no content to those principles that real estate should follow. All we've done is set the structure for the activity. So now we think, well, how do we do assessments of those particular domains? And we've done assessments of various cities, and what you can see there, when it goes green, it is much more sustainable. When it goes to yellow, it is satisfactory but barely satisfactory. It won't sustain our cities for the next 30 years. And in those subdomains which go to red, we're in crisis already and they won't even survive one generation or 30 years.
Han hecho varias evaluaciones en varios países y lo que está en verde significa más sustentable, lo que está en amarillo es satisfactorio pero no tan sustentable.
So this particular method, which FIABCI has now made a website and a software system to organise, is organised around the circles of sustainability, and it allows assessments of different cities. Now, I will have somebody else talking about what that is and how that works, but you can see the software system allows those assessments to be done of different cities in such a way as we can now, for the first time, set some baseline data and then link it into the habitat goals and the principles and the indicators of the Prosperity Index.
Este software permite ver lo que es la información y los puntos de data, y para poder hacer una conexión con los objetivos de Hábitat 3.
So the way in which this happens qualitatively, the process, the methodology behind, is it says economics. Economics is a very complex area and includes production and resourcing, it includes finance and exchange, but also includes accounting and regulation. So what are the questions we need to ask inside that framework?
Una parte de la metodología es cualitativa y se preguntan preguntas generales sobre, por ejemplo, en la economía, varios puntos sobre el tema de responsabilidad y regulación.
And experts in responding to each of those questions will be able to give a score which then gives rise to the figure that you saw before. This means that also we should be able to do it for culture, including well-being and health. This is normally something that real estate doesn't take into account, but when you look at those questions of sustainability, you can see that well-being is what we're actually aiming for. We're aiming for the well-being of humans on this planet in relation to housing, property development, and place development.
La idea de esta metodología cualitativa no es solo responder a temas económicos, y también culturales y de bienestar. Los expertos estarían en posición de responder estas preguntas y así hacer su evaluación.
Now the same thing we can do for how do we relate to those different domains. You can see here very clearly how real estate relates to those different domains. In the ecological domain, it's become very clear that carbon accounting or questions about the construction costs and emission costs of things like concrete have become major issues. You can also see in the cultural domain, which are usually left out of consideration, and I note that in the Sustainable Development Goals, culture was not really very strongly figured, that things like heritage issues and design issues, questions of beauty and style and aesthetics, are as important as other dimensions of ecological.
Entonces, ¿cómo se relaciona esta metodología con el desarrollo de bienes raíces? Un ejemplo importante es que la parte cultural y la parte social no se han tomado en cuenta en el desarrollo de bienes raíces. En esta metodología tomamos en cuenta estos puntos que son muy importantes para el desarrollo sostenible de una ciudad.
So as we move through those, we can actually then set up the positive principles for what is good real estate. We can say in ecology that it has a particular quality. Now these are under discussion and debate at the moment. I'll leave them there for you to read rather than for me to work my way through them. But they're arguments, they're principles which should be argued through, and they're arguments about what is good real estate development and in those four domains.
Y entonces empezamos a establecer principios en cada uno de estos dominios: ecología, economía, política y cultura, y definimos qué es un buen manejo de bienes raíces.
What this allows us to do, this system, is also step deeper into it. So ecology, and we already noticed if you read it, was property and place development should contribute to a more sustainable built environment and a deeper and more integrated human engagement with the natural world. But what does that mean? Well, it means that in these subdomains of materials and energy, with the sustainable use of materials and resources for all property and place development. And we can go through each of those particular sections and we can put in, for each of those subdomains, we can put claims about what is good development.
Adicionalmente, como habíamos mencionado antes, además de los dominios principales, podemos incursionar con a más profundidad en los subdominios y evaluar en cada uno de estos subdominios qué es una buena práctica de bienes raíces en cada uno de esos puntos.
Now all of these again will be debated. There will be questions which will come to FIABCI and to the members of FIABCI for debating. We've been through a whole series of processes already of discussion about these, and these are at a fairly advanced stage. But they will need further discussion and then ratifying by the major council and by the process of discussion at major events.
Estas preguntas serán debatidas en FIABCI y en el Consejo Mundial de FIABCI.
And if you want to go deeper, you can go deeper. We can take the domain of ecology, and then we can go inside minerals, inside materials and energy, and we can start to say what should happen at the next level. And in each of those areas, you'll start to recognise some of the demands that will be made on the building industry, on the way in which planning will work, on the way in which architects will think about it, how designers will develop buildings and property and precinct development. In each of these sections will be claims about what is good real estate development.
Si quieren ir más profundo, se puede ir mucho más profundo. Podríamos ir no solo del subdominio, sino a subniveles del mismo subdominio, donde los arquitectos, donde se puede evaluar las buenas prácticas de desarrollo urbano y planeación.
It is simple, it is accessible, and then you can see in a single figure how well your city is doing and how well your precinct or your property development relates to that city. The simplicity of it is very important, but it needs to also go down deeper and deeper. And what it can do for the first time is take some of those other developmental indicator sets, like the LEED set or wherever it is, which do good, sustainable housing, and puts them into a different framework. Rather than just testing whether a house or a property has got the right carbon emissions, what you're now testing is how people will use that property, how it culturally managed, how it politically is managed, and how that has ecological consequences.
Esta herramienta es muy simple y es muy accesible. Pueden ahora ustedes ver cómo las ciudades se están desarrollando a nivel, cómo sus ciudades están desarrollando y progresando en términos de desarrollo sustentable.
Because what we know is that for all the good systems that are out there, which emphasize ecological sustainability, without good people who actually have a culture of good use, who realize and want to make good use of their buildings and their property management, then all the particular requirements of a 5-star building will become 3 stars if 3-star people move into them.
Can you repeat the last part, please?
For all of the technical requirements of the various indicator systems, which are set up to make a claim about what is good building or property, for all those technical requirements, you need at the same time to know more about the cultural and political framework within which that happens. If you don't, if you just have technical requirements, then what you find is that people who don't understand how to use buildings and property will turn them into badly managed buildings and property.
Básicamente lo importante es no solo tomar en cuenta los requerimientos técnicos de un edificio o una construcción, sino también el entorno cultural de ese desarrollo. Si solamente se toma en cuenta los requerimientos técnicos, vamos a terminar en un edificio, en una construcción mal manejada y no sustentable.
Thank you. So in conclusion, let me say one thing. What this does is put a structure in place which all the dimensions, the various fields of real estate, work around a 4-domain structure of economy, ecology, politics and culture. And because they're working around a structure which is about what humans do in practice, the effect, we hope, will be a better planet. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul James. Now, I'll speak is Architect Marco Matteini, Vice President of FIABCI World Council of Experts, and coordinator of a group of architects that follow the software to monitor the sustainability using that methodology. Please, Marco. Some technical problem, but they're going to be solved. It's okay now.
Thanks, Enrico. Thanks all the people and the representative that are attending this meeting. And it's a real pleasure for me to be here at Habitat 3 for FIABCI. I'm here as a Vice President of Work Council of Experts, FIABCI, and the Coordinator Task Force of Architects and Planners for Sustainability. And I'm going to show you the FIABCI software to assess city sustainability. The software is an innovative tool for a collaborative sustainable urban development assessment, and it is based on the methodology that of the circle of sustainability that Paul James before me presented to you. Yes.
Okay. Esta herramienta que nos va a presentar FIABCI es una herramienta colaborativa que está en línea, es basada en una plataforma donde se puede evaluar los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable. Vamos a hablar ahora sobre la metodología.
The methodology is the urban profile process and the circle of sustainability. I go on quickly on these slides because Paul James explained better me before. And I pass directly to our software that is a cloud platform. The cloud platform has some different types of access. The first access is public access. Each people worldwide can have public access and can go inside the software to see the output of the cities.
La herramienta tiene varios accesos. El primer acceso es público y la gente puede ver el resultado puede ver los diferentes resultados.
Public can to see and print the assessments done and can have an access to the methodology.
Se puede ver las evaluaciones, el público puede ver las diferentes evaluaciones e imprimirlas.
Yes, and people can select one assessment and go to see and print it too. For each cities, there are also short summary of the assessment and the output that is a graphic result.
La herramienta es muy interactiva y se pueden ver las diferentes opciones que tiene para poder ver las evaluaciones y los indicadores.
Yes, and the people can also see and print a summary of the results. And I go on. And can see the list of the 7 sub-indicators, the number of replies received, the average of each sub-indicator, the difference between the average of a single sub-indicator and the average of indicator. And to print, click on the right of mouse and print the summary of the assessment results.
Se puede visualizar los 7 subindicadores, el número de respuestas recibidas, el promedio de cada subindicador, la diferencia entre el promedio de cada subindicador y el promedio del indicador principal.
This is another slide that explain what public can see inside it. But the main interesting part is this. This is the private part of the software, and the experts and the administrators can go inside the software with the login.
Esta es la parte más interesante de la herramienta. Es la herramienta es la parte de acceso privado donde los administradores de proyectos pueden entrar con su código de ingreso y password.
This is a login as administrator. The administrator can manage all the software. He can see the cities, and he can see also the progress status of the assessments.
Esa es la visualización del administrador del proyecto y puede ver la evaluación de las ciudades y el progreso y el estatus.
He can check also the assessment in the cities in the ECOSOC regions.
Puede también visualizar las evaluaciones de las ciudades y de las regiones de ECOSOC.
And he has all cities. For each of them, he can edit the assessment, or he can delete some parts of them. And he can go to the panel of assessment.
El administrador del proyecto puede ver la lista de evaluaciones, editarlas y a su vez también borrarlas.
The administrator can edit also new assessment and can insert inside the software the data of the city.
También puede, el administrador del proyecto también puede escoger la ciudad y las fechas.
And in particular, he can change also the questions of the assessment. So he can change also the indicators.
El administrador también puede cambiar las preguntas, así también como los indicadores.
The administrator can see the list of users and can add new users to make the assessment of a city.
El administrador puede visualizar los usuarios, así como también añadir usuarios para realizar las diferentes evaluaciones.
This is a login as project manager.
Ingreso como administrador de proyecto.
Project manager, we as FIABCI, we thought that each ESOCOC region could have a project manager.
Cada región ECOSOC tiene un administrador de proyecto.
He can check the assessment like the administrator.
Se pueden visualizar las evaluaciones tal como el administrador principal.
And he can check and he can manage only the list assessment of his ESOCOC regions.
Y también puede evaluar la lista de evaluaciones de la región ECOSOC.
I go quickly to the next slides. And can edit the assessment. Also, for each city, we have a city panel manager.
Cada ciudad tiene un administrador de panel
Who can manage the assessment of his city, like a mayor or other stakeholder of the city.
que puede visualizar la evaluación de su ciudad. En este caso puede ser el alcalde.
And this is the last login as a city panel member. City panel member can be stakeholder or can be also citizen. And the cloud platform is made to receive a lot of number of city panel member.
Este sería el ingreso como un miembro de la ciudad. que puede ser un ciudadano común.
The panel member go to his city.
Esa es la visualización que tendría el
He
miembro
can
de la
see
ciudad.
also the status of the assessment of the other cities, but he doesn't manage them. And for instance, for Florence, he can go to assessment panel and to the questionnaire. This is the assessment panel who describe the people that participate at the assessment. And this is the list of questions.
Esta es la lista de preguntas.
And the city panel member has to answer to each question for each indicators. And he can give a number that go by 1 critical to 9 vibrant.
Cada miembro de ciudad puede responder a cada una de esas preguntas.
Yes, I would especially like to thank Paul James and Enrico Campagnoli and our FIABCI president, past president Flavio Gonzaga Nunes, Daniel Grossenberg, our president Kirko Eiderian, and hope have a fruitful work with Paul James and Eduardo Moreno and Giulia Lavagna to combine in the software Circle of Sustainability and CPI. Thank you.
Él quiere agradecer a Enrico Campignoni.
Thanks very much, Marco. Sorry. Thanks very much, Marco. Giulia Lavagna is of UN Habitat, is a member of Circle of Prosperity Index Initiative. Giulia, to you.
Thank you to everybody. It's a great honor to be here. And we all know that real estate plays one of the most important roles in urban development. So it is a big responsibility, but I also think it's a big opportunity to build better, more affordable, and more inclusive cities. So I would like to present you the project that we're working on at UN Habitat on the City Prosperity Initiative. I'll leave some time.
Gracias. Ella está comentando que bienes raíces es una de las herramientas más importantes para poder crear, en este caso, ciudades que puedan ser affordable, que puedan ser asequibles y inclusivas. Gracias.
So, how do we measure the performance of city, and how do we know that what we did actually created change and made the cities moving forward toward sustainable progress?
¿Cómo podemos medir las ciudades con políticas públicas y cómo podemos medir la sostenibilidad urbana del desarrollo urbano?
In 2012, UN Habitat developed this tool, which is a City Prosperity Initiative, and it's a tool that is based on 6 dimensions that we consider the main dimension of a city prosperity.
En el 2012, la ONU, el Habitat UN, creó esto para poder medir. Hay 6 tipos de dimensiones de prosperidad urbana, y esto es un
instrumento.
Un instrumento.
What's going on? I'm not sure. So we said it's an initiative, it's a tool. And this tool provides a global monitoring, so it gives a global platform of comparability among countries and cities all over the world.
Esta es una herramienta que se puede usar alrededor del mundo para poder medir o monitorear las políticas y los cambios que se están haciendo alrededor del mundo.
It's a baseline setting, so to know where to go, to know how big is the change that we've made, we need to know where we start from. And this tool provides you a baseline of information.
Para poder saber a dónde vamos, tenemos que entender en dónde estamos comenzando, y esta herramienta es muy buena para poder crear eso.
It is a decision-making tool because based on the data that we collect, we are able to make more informed and evidence-based policies.
Esta es una herramienta de decisión, una herramienta que se hace de decisión, que tenemos que coger como decisión para poder saber a dónde estamos avanzando, para hacer la medida, la evaluación, me imagino.
It is a policy dialogue, so it integrates all the dimension of city and see how policies interrelate and have different relationship on each aspect of the city.
Es un diálogo de políticas o de reglamentos que es. Do you mind repeating the last part? Sorry.
Es un diálogo de políticas urbanas. Es un diálogo de políticas urbanas donde las políticas urbanas son integradas y se pueden ver cómo las políticas urbanas afectan una a la otra. It is also a monitoring instrument. So it means that once we are working on implementing the new urban agenda, the 2030 agenda, we know how good we are performing. Es un instrumento de monitoreo, entonces cuando estamos implementando los proyectos de las ciudades, sabemos a qué punto estamos y lo que todavía nos falta mejorar. So the four main things that this tool is doing, it's measuring. So it's producing data. The big challenge is producing data at the local level. It's understanding which are the factors that are affecting these data, which are the factors that inhibit or improve prosperity and performance of cities. It's a tool that promotes change and also monitor the change that has been done. Es un instrumento que no solo mide los datos a nivel de ciudad, nos deja nos
ayuda a entender.
Nos ayuda a entender cuáles son los factores que afectan la prosperidad y la performance de la ciudad. Es un instrumento que promueve el cambiamiento y también nos monitora cómo este cambiamiento está procediendo. So I'll be quick because I see amazing food down there. I think that all of us would like to go. The City Prosperity Initiative, it's unique in a way because of four main characteristics. It's a flexible monitoring, it promotes integration, it's based on spatial analysis, and it's a multi-scale tool. Las cuatro características principales de este instrumento es que es muy flexible, se puede aplicar a ciudades cuanto a países, promueve integración entre las diferentes dimensiones de la ciudad, es basado en un análisis espacial y también opera a diferentes escalas. As we said, is a flexible monitoring. We can go from a very superficial first analysis of the city to a very extended and in-deep analysis of it. Vamos desde una primera análisis de la ciudad a un nivel superficial hasta al nivel donde se priorizan las necesidades de cada ciudad y se analizan cuáles son las necesidades. It's a framework that promotes integration. So in the case of housing, we cannot say that housing is completely independent from infrastructure or public place. How those elements affect housing. Entonces, promueve integración en el sentido que analiza todos los diferentes aspectos de la ciudad, como la infraestructura, como los espacios públicos afectan las viviendas y el desarrollo de la vivienda. Ok. Es basado en un análisis espacial. Bueno, es basado en un análisis espacial de la ciudad. Vamos a través de Google Maps analizando exactamente cómo es el tejido de la ciudad. It's based on a spatial analysis. So through Google Maps or even local visit, we see how the city is actually framed and how is the urban form affecting. Can we still get support because the presentation isn't working? And
Unfortunately, we need to gain a little bit of time, so would it be possible to bring your conclusion? Unfortunately, we're a little bit short on time.
Sure. So what Habitat wants to do with this tool, we want to measure and assess the Sustainable Development Goals and, of course, the new urban agenda. This can be a tool which provide a baseline information which is common to all cities and all countries and can help as much as local government and real estate to have information on their cities to better make efficient and effective planning. Entonces, lo que queremos hacer con este instrumento es no solo medir lo que son los objetivos de desarrollo de la Agenda 2030 y de la nueva Agenda Urbana, sino también dar una base de datos para hacer un investimento efectivo y exitoso de parte no solo de los gobiernos locales, pero sí también de real estate y de la asociación privada.
Excelente español.
Gracias. We are of course very happy to be here with FIABCI, and we're looking forward to continue the discussion on how to merge these two tools together to move forward on the common agenda. Estamos muy felices de estar aquí y nos vemos. Look forward.
Hola.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Hola.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks to everybody.
We're going to have a break in just 1 or 2 minutes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Marco Matteini, tomorrow at 9:11 will be at stand 54 of FIABCI. Everybody who would like to test how is working our software can go there and test how it is working.
Thank you very much. 54 in the exhibition hall. Before we break out for a few minutes, I would like to introduce Mr. Michel Labbé from Toronto to say a few words.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity just to speak for a few minutes. I'm going to try for 2. So my name is Mike Labbé. I'm with a company called Options for Homes. I'm actually responsible for the international development that we do. Options for Homes is a relatively unique organization. You can check into us at optionsforhomes.ca, which will save you a lot of time in terms of listening. But we actually simply deliver housing. We deliver housing, and the work we're doing is primarily in Africa. And I would urge FIABCI to put some thought into the challenges that occur with African cities. They are much more simpler as an entity and much more in crisis than many other cities that people have to deal with. So thinking about what we can do in Africa would be something that would be incredibly valuable to that continent. But mainly I want to speak to the people in the room that actually do development. And if they are interested in being able to work in the African context, we have spent a number of years now working with local groups to see how we can deliver housing in a meaningful way in Africa. And it seems to me that from that perspective, we can start to make a big difference just by bringing our knowledge to the groups that are trying to do the implementation on the ground. So our experience as a nonprofit corporation is we worked in Toronto. We've built, through the principles of the organization, almost 12,000 units. In Africa, we build housing with local groups, and the profits we take and we put them back into a fund to recycle through to build more housing. And we think that's going to give Africa a much better chance to move forward and do development. So people that are interested in those ideas can chase me down afterwards. How's that for 2 minutes? Any translation you want to do is perfectly fine.
Thank you very much. We've got a 10-minute break and we'll start again. Thank you.
Thank you.